sitting on the front row of the balcony at Ceredigion Museum, which is the Colosseum in Aberystwyth. It was a theatre from 1904 and then a cinema from the 1930s. In 1934, Mr. and Mrs. Gale came to run the cinema, but unfortunately Mr. Gale died quite early on. Mrs. Gale had to run the cinema virtually single-handed, except she did have some children, but they were quite young when she started off, but they did actually help her to run the place. Her son Peter and her daughter Dorothy. After it shut as a cinema in 1976, the council repossessed the building and it was turned into Ceredigion Museum, which it still is today, housing the museum collection. We kept this row of seats to suggest the former use as the cinema. A few years after we'd opened as the museum, there was a film festival in Aberystwyth run by Berwyn Rowlands, and he approached us to see whether we could actually have some of the films that had originally been shown at the cinema here, and we were in agreement that we should have some showing of these films. And one of the suggestions was that we would go through the books, the records that we kept, which were very well kept actually, of the early days of the cinema. They used to handwrite every single film that was shown, how many people came and how much money was taken. And one of the earliest films that was shown here was The Wizard of Oz. So in that first week of the Aberystwyth Film Festival, we actually showed The Wizard of Oz here, and I'd never seen it myself. So it was a first time for me. It was great actually, and I remember sitting down in the front row with my torch, pretending to be an usherette, and so the film started, and of course it's in black and white to begin with, and then turns into super colour, and it was such an odd feeling because suddenly I realised as the film was progressing that the girl in the film is called Dorothy, and not only is she called Dorothy, but she's called Dorothy Gale. And Mr. and Mrs. Gale, who ran this cinema, had a daughter called Dorothy Gale, and that she'd actually lived here. And there was a sudden feeling that the film, this having been a cinema, there was a connection between somehow this place coming back to some kind of really odd cinema spiritual feeling in this building of her, the girl, having lived here, and then her name being shouted out on the screen, Dorothy Gale, where are you? Dorothy Gale, where are you? And here we were in the building where she'd once lived, and somehow just having that experience in this building made me think that there are odd things happening here.